All right, we are getting warmed up, getting logged in. Getting logged into all of our streaming services. Coming together right now. We got about 1.5 minutes to showtime. Just log in and prepare for news. Greetings, everyone at Foxhole, DLive, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Good to see you all. Chat room is beginning to fill up. Tony M is there. Old Dog is there. Yes. Worries. We'll start the stream with the studio, and the phone lines will be live in about 2 minutes. About 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Give plenty of time to get that ice cold drink and get settled in. Okay, let's go ahead and bring the studio in. Studio is live. Bringing in the phone lines right now. And there we are. Don't worry, Earth Explorers will be live in about 30 seconds. All right, call board is live. And here we go, hour one. Greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results are always positive, hence the formula X Squared. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. We have a ton of news to get through tonight, and some of it is so important you cannot miss a minute. So hold it, put it on pause, come back, don't let this get by you. Tonight we start with a story I call the Praetorian Guard. If you don't know what that is, the United States Capitol Police is poised to begin using the same military surveillance systems that American troops used against terrorists in Iraq and Afghanistan against American Patriots. Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals are moving into a new path toward an intelligence-based protective agency. And they're listening right now, and we are watching them like a hawk. Yes, the U.S. Capitol Police released a statement this week that said through a loan from the Department of Defense, your tax dollars, It will have access to state-of-the-art campus surveillance technology, which will enhance the ability to detect and monitor threat activity. What's threat activity, do you think? The surveillance technology system will provide high-definition surveillance video, including night vision. We have good video right here. You don't need any night vision. We're set to go. Just monitor this video right here. June 2nd, they said, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin had approved a request from the USCP for surveillance systems to improve U.S. Capitol security. It said, under this arrangement, the Department of Defense, that would be the regular U.S. military, will provide 8 persistent surveillance systems ground medium units on a reimbursable basis for a period of 1 year. That means a 1 year with many options to come. The Army, the U.S. Army, not the National Guard, not the FBI, the United States Army will install the units and will train USCP personnel or authorized contractors to operate the systems. Except for required maintenance of the systems, no DoD personnel will operate the PSSGM units. Oh, I see. That's how they get around it. Yes, the regular Army comes in and trains the Capitol Police to use the equipment. That means everything that is on your cell phone will be downloaded if you get within distance of these units. Every contact that you have on your phone will then be in their systems. All your texts, all your emails, all your photographs, all your videos on your phone will then become property of the Department of Defense. An April 2nd, 2015 article featured on the Army's Program Executive Office for Intelligence, Electronic Warfare, and Sensors website described a similarly named system, the Persistent Ground Surveillance Systems. According to the article, the PGSS, they call it, can detect small arms fire and other activity in support of rapid reaction security forces. The PGSS, like there was only small arms fire that I remember, that I recall, in Washington on January 5th and 6th. The only small arms fire I remember was when the Capitol Police officer murdered Ashley Babbitt in cold blood. That's the only small arms fire I heard. I wonder if they'll record that. I wonder if they'll surveil that. The BGSS provides day and night 360-degree detection, surveillance, and target marking capability, with an ability to stay aloft in the air for up to 30 days. It is capable of detecting hostile fire, providing target coordinates to appropriate command and control centers, fire control centers, and is capable of marking ground targets for rapid reaction forces for engagement. Yes, that would be engagement of U.S. federal troops with Patriots. It is not clear whether the PSSG-M unit would be mounted on an aerostat. That's a balloon. I don't know if we got some World War II information for you tonight. That's very important. I remember in the war games that I was involved in, doing a lot of research on World War II and the tactics and methods that were used in that war. And one of the tactics that was popular was the use of aerostats, that is to say, a balloon, a lighter-than-air craft. Now, these are tethered to the ground with a cable. Typically, they are at 2,000 to 5,000 feet. They're designed to do two things. One, provide over-the-horizon radar look, of course, but the other is the cable itself protected the area against strafing by enemy aircraft, because the cable would just cut the wings off any airplane that tried to come in there and strafe or dive bomb the area. Now these aerostats are are quite capable of maintaining 15,000 feet. I doubt they'll do that over DC because there's a lot of air traffic around there that could just drift into the area. 15,000 feet would be dangerous, but they're capable of being tethered to the ground and being up there 15,000 feet. Now that would give it a look almost all the way to New York City. These are military capable aerostats. Now I designed one called the Sentinel. And the Sentinel's not tethered to the ground, okay? It orbits above a city at 80,000 feet. 80,000 feet. And it's capable of staying in a geosynchronous orbit with its own propulsion. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it monitors the ground and can protect itself. 80,000 feet's awful hard to shoot down from the ground. It's called the Sentinel. It's designed to keep the streets of a city safe. But according to the Washington Times, the data gathered from the systems in the aerostat could be used to develop what they call, and I'm using my quotes here for those of you that are on the live stream of Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is where the Truth Freaks hang out. And we are not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly, because following us here at America Free Radio will treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance. This system is capable of developing a pattern of life analysis on suspected enemy combatants or intelligence targets in war zones. In war zones. So now the Capitol, for the first time since the Revolutionary War, or I guess since the War of 1812, or since the Civil War, is now a war zone. It is not clear who would actually store the information, who would keep up with the Capitol surveillance, who would be watching it, who would be analyzing, what artificial intelligence would be going through that information. Indeed, a federal appeals court ruled last month that the Baltimore Police Department's use of persistent surveillance technology was actually unconstitutional and it violated the Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable search and seizure. Yes, William Owen from the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project told the public that the new technology is an alarming advance of police surveillance. Now, you recall when Barack Obama was president of the United States, that he talked about openly, publicly, in fact, he marketed it on a regular basis, the militarization of police in the United States, that they needed to be a domestic military force to be used against, well, anyone that would oppose their politics. Now, the USCP's Civil Disturbance Unit has also increased its training with the National Guard and is also in the process of opening regional field offices. Where? Oh, California, Florida, Texas, with additional regions in the near future to investigate threats to members of Congress. Yes, threats to members of Congress. It is also increasing intelligence sharing with local and federal law enforcement, as well as increased partnership within the intelligence community. Are you listening, Laura Loomer? You might be a threat to Congress. John Robb, blogger on Global Gorillas and podcast host, tweeted this week that the USCP's acquisition of the systems sounds like the beginning of a Praetorian Guard. And you know as well as I do that once these things are initiated, they're never unraveled. Be prepared. There are those that have already fallen to technology like this. You know, right now we have political prisoners being held against their will and against the Constitution in solitary confinement as a result of the celebration of January 6th. If the late Jeffrey Epstein's alleged partner in sex trafficking can be granted a laptop 13 hours a day to actively participate in her defense, why not the political prisoners being held against their will from the Capitol celebration? The jailhouse accommodation for Ghislaine Maxwell is the most prominent example cited in a bail application for alleged Capitol rioter, they call him Dominic Pezzola, submitted to D.C. federal court Friday. The 43-year-old veteran, who is now in prison in solitary confinement in a D.C. jail for over 150 days without a trial date, without bail, and without an attorney, has been effectively shut out of his own defense in violation of constitutional guarantees specifically for defendants, not just their counsel. Not only is Pezzola unable to adequately view the voluminous text, audio, and video evidence held by the prosecution, also a violation of the Constitution, but like all other January 6th defendants, political prisoners housed a short drive from the U.S. Capitol, his right to attorney-client privilege is functionally meaningless. His lawyers, his lawyers are Marty Tankleff and Stephen Metcalf, and they are not allowed to communicate on a regular basis. Thank you, Old Dog, for that generous contribution. Well, by the way, I just want to let you know the contributions while Jason Frank was on the program have been delivered to him, and he is most grateful. Most grateful. Thank you very much for the support. They raised similar objections about lack of privacy, access to evidence, following a brief outrage from Democratic and Republican lawmakers about Department of Corrections policies for the political prisoners being held against their will. Pezzola has, and it's spelled P-E-Z-Z-O-L-A, so I'm saying it like pizza, but Pezzola, has literally been in his jail cell 23 hours a day. And it is impossible to have a free-flowing conversation with their client in these open cages where there is no confidentiality and everybody can hear the conversation, including the prison guards. DC jail evidence review policies also have the potential to invade attorney-client privilege and the practical effect of punishing inmates by putting them in restrictive housing for 2 weeks at a time to privately review CDs and DVDs of evidence on jail-provided laptops. Every keystroke is recorded. They cited a recent scandal in New York City where their law practice is based, involving the accidental recording of at least 1,500 attorney-client phone calls by a prison telecom contractor. District attorneys for all 5 boroughs received the recordings. All the George Soros-placed district attorneys. In this case, the lawyers hold, a better alternative to give Pezzola a laptop is granting him bail, which would sidestep concerns about the D.C. jail not following court orders and infringing his attorney-client privilege. The jail has a record of discriminating against Pezzola, sending him to the hole multiple times without a reasonable, logical reason, but rather as retaliation or harassment. One of these, lasting about 2 weeks without a single disciplinary charge, happened hours after a broadcast interview with his wife, alleging human rights violations on a daily basis against the January 6th political prisoners who were not part of the general jail population. The motion claims dozens of them share the same unsanitary nail clippers. Exercise is limited at best, access to showers non-existent, a religious service and haircuts are banned. It's not just the defense attorneys raising these concerns, by the way. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know who she is, the one that's been released from all of her committee assignments, so now she has all the time in the world, and as a freshman, all the notoriety in the world to be able to do things for patriots. She said to FBI Director Chris Wray, Bureau of Prisons Director Michael Carvajal, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, who is, well, we won't even go into that, and Yogananda Pittman, acting chief of the U.S. Capitol Police. Marjorie demanded that they provide records by July 30th, which is, 12 days from now, on visitation hours, religious accommodations, solitary confinement, number of daily meals, and access to attorneys and potentially exculpatory evidence for the January 6th political prisoners. If reports surrounding the treatment of these prisoners are true, she said, it is an enormous stain on the credibility of our justice system. No shit. No shit. Unlike with Ghislaine Maxwell, who allegedly arranged Epstein's sexual encounters with underage girls and boys probably, the government can't come close to showing Pezzola is a flight risk, as the court determined months ago, the bail motion says. His wife and children remain in the same community where he's lived for more than 20 years. That leaves only the long outdated dangerousness factors behind his original pretrial detention. Pezzola's alleged discussions with other celebrators of bringing weapons to D.C. and a recovered thumb drive with instructions for making bombs, firearms, and poisons, wherever they got that. Any terms of his release would prohibit access to weapons. It is, if not released on his own personal recognizance, he can be placed in the custody of his wife under a high-intensity supervision program. They call it an ankle bracelet. Those 3 additional charges are not enough to justify continued detention, according to the motion. 2 are based on Pezzola picking up a riot shield dropped by a U.S. Capitol officer, hardly a weapon, and the 3rd, obstructing an officer from responding to civil disorder, did not stop release on bond for federal Michael Foy, alleged to have struck officers at least 10 times with a hockey stick, and Michael is free to go. The filing includes several pages of other defendants who faced equal or greater criminal charges and were granted bail or released on their own recognizance. Probably FBI agents in the crowd, beating up cops so that they could gain the trust of those people around them. They included actress Lori Loughlin, former police officer Derek Chauvin, Adam Christian Johnson, and January 6th, political prisoner. Oh, no. He was photographed walking off with Speaker Nancy Pelosi's lectern. I see. Oh, that's so violent. Can't possibly grant him bail. Depriving Pezzola the same leniency violates his equal protection rights, especially in light of federal prosecutors dropping charges against the vast majority of arrestees nationwide who looted and rioted following George Floyd's death. The most serious felony counts against Mr. Pezzola could also be applied to Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer for having threatened Justices Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh on the steps of the Supreme Court during oral arguments in an abortion case. And remember, Chucky, you are only immune when you are on the floor of the Senate. You are not immune when you are outside that building and you threaten someone's safety in the government. Chuck Schumer should be arrested and held in solitary confinement without a laptop and access to counsel. The lawyers said they would also request discovery for the government's charging documents against pro-choice Code Pink activists who were violent and threatened to blow up the Capitol, and other protesters who disrupted Kavanaugh's confirmation hearings, which were official proceedings. Official proceedings, you get that? This is serious stuff. Serious stuff. So these political prisoners, the pressure is on. Yes, that's right, old dog. Political prisoners in America. He says, let that phrase sink in. It is Heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking, but what we're seeing here is a disregard of equality. Don't they want equality? Aren't they campaigning for equality? Don't they speak about equality? Don't they shake their fists in the air for equality? Yes, they do. But they're not talking about equal protection under the law. They're talking about something else. I got news for you. War is justice denied. War is justice denied. So what is the true pandemic? Really, what is the true pandemic? Coming and going and coming and going almost at will. And you've been struggling to understand how 187 governments could go along with their entire economies being destroyed in the name of the flu. Why would they let some unknown foreign agency make such an order? Ever ask yourself that? If you read Charm of Favor, you might understand. You see, the global syndicate is now just as powerful as it was in the 1600s. Yeah, they authorized and contracted all world travel of any kind. They assigned borders. They assessed global taxes and used their unstoppable military to wipe out anyone who resisted them. Now, they just make a phone call. You wondered why so many people have put on their yellow vests and are jamming every street in every city in protest. To what, you ask? Well, now maybe you will be a believer in what is coming. Yes, really. People in France who enter a bar or a restaurant without a COVID pass face 6 months in jail, while business owners who fail to check their status face a 1-year prison sentence and a €45,000 fine. The punishments are part of a draconian effort by the French government to force citizens to get the jab amidst multiple unruly protests across numerous major cities. Yes, President Emmanuel Macron, the little boy who married his elementary school teacher. He grew up, but he married his elementary school teacher with whom he had a crush when he was in elementary school. By the way, his classmate, which is his elementary school teacher's son, is now his stepson. Yeah. He announced earlier this week that those perhaps unable to prove they're vaccinated, or a negative COVID test, at their own cost, by the way, will be banned from using public transport, entering a cinema, shopping mall, bar, cafe, restaurant, and other venues after August 1st. Here I quote, "People unable to present a valid health pass risk up to 6 months in prison and a fine of up to 10,000 to 8,500 or 10,000 euros, according to the draft text of the law, while owners of establishments welcoming the public who fail to check patrons' passes could go to jail for a year and be hit with a 45,000 euro fine. The sanctions represent the most authoritarian move to force people to get the jab in the Western world, and probably outstrip a lot of actual dictatorships in other parts of the world." What is that? One of my followers on text is saying he stepped down. Who stepped down? You're saying that Macron stepped down? Really? That must have happened in the last few hours, because it's not in my notes. The Guardian rather euphemistically described it as a big stick approach, which would be true if that big stick were an electric cattle prod the size of One World Trade Center. The government had to withdraw a similar law back in December following numerous riots, but merely reintroduced the same legislation, even tougher, as soon as the riots ended. As we previously highlighted, the police in Paris They used tear gas to disperse demonstrators protesting against the measures in scenes that unfolded in several other major cities throughout the country. Oh, my listener out in California on text says it's behind the scenes that Macron has stepped down. Well, I have to wait for the sauce, my friends. You see, we're now entering the phase of the panic-demic where it's becoming clear that those who refuse to take the jab will remain under the most onerous lockdown measures yet in perpetuity. And here's the question everyone's asking. Does the jab keep you safe? No. Between December of 2020 and May of 2021, that's about 6 months, more than 4,680 people have died immediately after taking the vaccine. And this would be considered immediately, it was 3 to 5 days. The health officials have to keep these records. They have to keep these records. If you give the vaccine to someone and they die 3 to 5 days later, that is recorded. 4,680 people have died immediately after taking the vaccine. And this is according to the CDC's own website, and I would venture to say the numbers are much higher than this. Although, this is a very small percentage of those who have actually been jabbed. Listen to this, and you know we are strict statisticians here at X Squared Radio and America Free Radio. This number is more people than have died after vaccination over the past 20 years. Now, I'm waiting until the human trials are done myself. I am chock full of antibodies, and I have access to the world's best therapeutics that protect the human body from making the coronavirus spike protein. And if you would like to know more about it, visit my web store, brooksagnew.blog or brooksagnew.com. Click on the store link. I'm going to leave the link right down here in the description in YouTube. And it will be in the newsletter. So the newsletter that goes out tonight, it goes out twice a week on Wednesdays and Sunday nights. It's free. That means it don't cost nothing. Right now we have about 4,000 people that get that newsletter twice a week. I would very much like to make that as many people as listen to this program, 15, 20,000, because there is important information in that newsletter that you need to have, and it's free. Just let it come into your mailbox. Delete it if you want to. Don't open it if you don't want to. But if you open it, there's important information in there, like this link. Now, what is at the store? Well, there's a report on ivermectin on my website. It's a report, a PDF. It's an electronic download that I will send you when you make your purchase. Yeah, the report costs $60. Actually, it's $70. We just had to raise it to $70. And there's samples that come to you as a result of you purchasing this report. Yes, and that's all we're going to say about that. Go to the website and check it out. All right, what's going on with DACA? Well, hang on one second. What is that? Interesting. Okay, Foxhole people are very smart, and the link, I'm going to put the link right in here. Okay, hold on just a second. Just give me a second, okay? I'm talking and I'm writing. Just give me a moment. Make sure I spelled it right. Yes, I did. Everything's in there. Okay, it's in Foxhole. I'm going to put it in the rest of the chat. Hang on a second. Well, can a listener do that for me? Just put it in the chat. Okay? You know the link. Many of you have already accessed the report. Your samples are on the way as we speak. And you always wanted to know how to keep yourself safe. This is how you do it. All right. And we will accumulate this list tonight and we will send it to the sample provider. You'll have the report, and everything should be good. Everything should be good. That's a good question. Flat Water, Flat H2O, says, so what happens to the businesses that lose revenue by denying services to those who haven't gotten the jab? Well, too bad, so sad. The idea is to create, if you just go the next step here, the idea is to create a schism between the business community in any city, town, or village and the people that live there. I recall a comic, and it was one of those like Far Side comics. It's just one frame, and it shows this captain of the guard standing next to the king. And they're on the ramparts of the castle, and they're looking out over the people. And it's a big crowd of people, like a big demonstration going on. And the captain of the guard says to the king, we're having a very hard time of forcing people to wear the mask. And the king says, oh, you don't have to do that. Just tell the people that are wearing the mask that the people who aren't wearing the mask are trying to kill them. That's the schism. That's the schism. And if you haven't experienced that, you haven't been out. As I've experienced it in almost every state that I visited during the lockdown, including my own. Yes, I went to Planet Fitness to work out, just like I've been working out there for 10 years. And I walked in, scanned my little badge, and my picture comes up. I make about 5 paces, and the punk behind the counter says, Sir, you can't go any further. And I turned around and I faced him. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you can't come in without a mask. I said, oh, yes, I can. And I'm going to work out. And he said, no, you can't enter without a mask. And I said, look at your records right there on your computer. I have a health condition that precludes me from wearing the mask. I'm exempt. And besides that, I'm immune. And he said, it doesn't matter. You have to wear a mask. I said, I'm not wearing a mask. He said, then you're not working out. I said, then what's the point of having a membership if I can't work out? He said, maybe you should resign your membership. Well, that just flew all over me. My pupils dilated so far you couldn't tell my eyes were brown. Well, the conflict was on, and the big guys standing behind him, they were ready for it. It would have been fun. Would have been fun in front of all those witnesses there, at masked people struggling to breathe on the elliptical machine and the bicycles. But I said, you know what? Why don't we just do that? Why don't you just pull it up and I'll give up my membership right now, because I am a free American and you're not going to put me in solitary confinement. He got a surprised look on his face, but just as he was so practiced at it, he pulled that up in less than 2 minutes, turned the monitor around to me and said, sign here. I said, no problem. I signed my name and I flipped my membership card down on the counter, and if it was a piece of glass, it would have broken. And I said, I'm out. And all you here saw what happened. And I walked out. So I don't work out at Planet Fitness because of the assault of this punk behind the counter. And if you haven't experienced that, then you don't know the schism I'm talking about. The wedge that's being driven, the power that's given to the people behind that cash register to isolate the people in their community that will not bow to their will. You know what I'm talking about. Well, yes, I have put on 15 pounds, not muscle. Having the discipline to go to a gym and work is what helps me keep my girlish figure. Okay, come on. Where do you think these come from? They don't come from typing on a keyboard. I'm just telling you. I'm going to find a gym now that the made-for-TV virus threat is over. But I don't want to go through that again. I know you don't either. So in answer to Flat H2O's question, the business goes without. They don't get my $10 a month anymore. That's $120 a year. But you know what? I am America. Oh, yes, I am America. I am so typical. I am so average that the things that I want, the things that I pick out of a lineup are automatically number one. I listen to the number one song before it's number one. I buy the number one tennis shoes before they're number one. I ride the number one motorcycle before it's number one. That's because I am America. America Free Radio, we are here, the voice of the revolution. Not because we're leading, because we're part of a massive movement. So if I left Planet Fitness, their bottom line suffered. When I stopped buying ads on Facebook, they lost $400 million in business. Their stock dropped 12% in value because I left, and so did millions of other people. All right, let's make sure that we probably talked right through the break. Sorry about that. At Truth Frequency, the break music doesn't work at the Truth Frequency studios anymore, so we're just talking right through the break. And listen, the phone lines are open, so if anyone out there in Ohio or Texas or California wants to call in and have a discussion about anything, 213-233-3998, 213-233-3998. I'll say it one more time because not everybody's watching on YouTube. Some people are listening by audio because we are going out through TalkStream Live from the Truth Frequency Radio studios to millions of people all around the world. Yes, from Australia all the way to California. People are listening to this program on AM and FM stations because we're restreaming through iHeart and through TuneIn and Orange and a dozen other restreaming audio sources, because TalkStream Live is the number one source for live streamed audio in the world. And Truth Frequency Radio is one of the top 10 networks on that stream. So yes, it's 213-233-3998, and the phone lines will be open the entire program. All right, let's talk a little bit about DACA. What do we got? Oh, we have a caller from Madison, Alabama. I think it's important to take a call, don't you? Yes? Thumbs up? Okay, here we go. Alabama, you're on America Free Radio. What's on your mind?
Hey, how's it going, man? It's Michael from Conflict Radio.
Hey, it's going fantastic, Mike. Welcome.
How's your day going there?
Well, my day was full of relaxation, although I did get the highway lights. These are LED lensed highway lights wired on my motorcycle. They're blinding. I love them. They're fantastic. So it's been productive, but it's also been relaxing. How are you?
Not too bad, man. So what do you think about what's going on in Cuba? I heard that they are turning away boats that are headed here.
Yes, they are. Mayorkas, who is the one of the members of Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals, they have decided that Cubans might not vote Democrat when they get here. And they don't want the Cuban community in Florida to get any stronger than it is, because they're all America First supporters. And so Mayorkas is blocking them from coming to the United States. However, all borders are open if they want to walk across a border in Texas, Arizona, or New Mexico, or California. So my thoughts are that, and I've got a big piece on Cuba beginning here in about 15 minutes. I think that finally la revolución is about to happen. What do you think?
I think it's happening right now. We're watching it. It's happening all over the world. You see, Ireland just blew up too.
Yeah, I find this most curious because I recall back in World War II, this kind of uprising was typical in Germany and France against the Nazis. Of course, the Nazis had all the weapons, and this was a big deal. And so the Allies, that is to say the United States, in about 6 months, 300 people under authorization of the Department of Defense produced a little item called the FP-45. That would be Frank Paul 45. Do you know what that was?
No.
The FP-45 was a single-shot cast aluminum 45 caliber pistol. That gun, single shot, with 10 rounds of ammunition and a cartoon that showed how to load and fire the gun. 1 million of them were parachuted into Germany at night. Now, was this the weapon of a revolution? No, it wasn't. You can't do much with a single-shot aluminum Saturday night special that shoots a 45 caliber ACP round. No. But the gun was designed, and the cartoon explained how, to kill a Nazi soldier and take his weapon. And it worked. The FP-45 was dropped in from 1941 to 1943 over Germany, and it worked. It allowed the partisans to have weapons when they didn't have them before. And I have a feeling, if not some wealthy Cuban American, someone else, somebody is going to arm these people, and it's going to be game over for the dictators. Those are my thoughts, and that's just history talking.
You know that the United States, I don't think the Biden administration is going to want Cuba to be free. I mean, if they're working with, you know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, it gets to the point where it looks like the United States and the Biden administration is actually working with like China and Russia to keep this island suppressed, don't you think?
Yes, I think that's probably correct. And the same thing happened with Venezuela. Venezuela rebelled against its oppressive government, and we didn't give them any assistance either, although I think Trump was with them. But one pattern we are seeing here that we have not ever seen before is China. China moved into Venezuela and Russia and supported Maduro. In fact, told Maduro, don't you dare resign. You stay, you hold your ground, we'll support you. But the same thing's happening in Cuba. China moved into Cuba and provided them technology that effectively shut off the internet. And so you recall about 4 months ago, hang on a second, let me scroll down a little bit. Yes, 4 months ago, a song that was produced in Florida, but it was released in a Cuban Spanish called Patria y Vida. Patria y Vida translates as land and life, or land and life. Anyway, it's a hit song. And it says, and you are my siren song, because with your voice my sorrows go away, and this feeling is already stale. You hurt me so much even though you are away. And it goes on to say, this is my way of saying it. My people cry, and I feel their voice. You're 5'9", which means 1959 when Cuba fell, and I 22, which means 2020. 60 years locked the domino, drum and saucer to 500 of Havana, while at home in the casseroles they no longer have hama. So this hit song went out, and I think this song started the revolution. And I think it's in the people's heart, and I don't think they're going to give up. And as long as the press can be kept out of there, the dictators are going to be able to gun down people and arrest people that are in the front lines of these protests. So we've got to get the press in there. We've got to get pictures and video out to the world to tell the world what's happening. And I think it's time for the FP-45.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but how hard is it for somebody to go by, give them internet? Couldn't Elon Musk just be like, okay, well, now you have internet. Here's your free Starlinks or something, or sail a boat off the coast with a hotspot? I mean, that be done?
That's a great question, and it is being done. Hang on a second. I've got some information on that. Yes, there is a company that has provided temporary internet in there, and it's almost impossible to stop. And it's giving these people some method to communicate one with another. I wish I had that information right at my fingertips. I don't, but it's in here somewhere in my notes. But anyway, the point is that yes, it is being done. But that's just the information side. Just the information side. These people need to remove the dictators. Now, I think if President Trump was in office, now many people will argue that he is still president of the United States. I might be one of them, I'm not saying. But I don't think that these people in the streets of Cuba would be ignored. I think they would be supported. And this is an area that, like Taiwan is to China, it's of great interest to the United States because of its proximity to Florida, and to be able to not only monitor our communications but also deliver a weapon if they decide to. It is in our interest to control, or at least keep, Cuba free of communist influence. So I think it's going to happen. The momentum is there.
Well, do you think before it happens, China and Russia actually put troops into there?
Well, no, I don't. I think if airplanes or boats are on their way to there, this would be huge. This would be Bay of Pigs huge. And I don't know if we have a president that has, well, we don't. We just don't have a president that has the cojones to say, stop right there. You can't travel any further. If you cross this line, we're going to bomb your boats. Ordinarily I would say no way. No way are they going to land troops there. No way are they going to fly airplanes in there with weapons or troops or trainers or anybody. But I don't know. With Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals, this is right down their alley. They want to take the republic apart.
China does own them. They're not going to stand up to China when China's pulling their purse string.
Well, we won't even stand up against our own oppressive government. So who are we to say anything?
Yeah. Well, not yet, anyway.
I like your attitude. Thanks for coming on the program tonight.
Take it easy.
You too. All right, one more caller. Let's see. Burlington, Vermont, you are on the program. What's on your mind?
Christopher from Northern Vermont, Greenheart 1 in the chat room. Thank you so much for taking my call, Mr. Brooks Agnew.
Awesome. Wow. I'm so humbled. Greenheart, where would we be without you? Welcome.
Thank you so much. Well, all I'm doing is listening and contributing when I can. I have several updates, a couple of questions, and a very brief story on exposure to the JAD starts. So if I can just dive right into it real quick.
Yeah, take the floor. You got 6 minutes till the break. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, yesterday we had an incredible symposium on Americanism versus Marxism presented by Pastor Ed Wheeler at the Valley Bible Church in Middlebury. So anyone can get the PDF on the whole PowerPoint from me. I can email it to you. Contact me through the revolution.radio chat room. Sign in with a nickname. Enter your email. It's free. No one will send you an email. Then get trusted. Send me a private message, Greenheart1, and I can email that to you. We have an incredible event coming up in September. The greatest danger to America is not white supremacy or climate change. It's the Chinese Communist Party. We have 3 incredible speakers coming to Vermont Friday, September 10th, and Saturday, September 11th.
Is that going to live stream?
Probably not.
Okay.
But I am asking everyone to pray for our Patriots in Vermont and pray that we get the word out and pray that we fill this room. 300 seats Friday night, September 10th. I posted the link in the chat, vtgrassroots.com, VT for Vermont.
Okay.
vtgrassroots.com. And then it's going to be Gordon Chang, Eric Metaxas, and then we just signed on Will Johnson, and his website is uniteamericafirst.com. So wonderful events coming up in Vermont. Brooks, I did post the link to your brooksagnew.blog in the chat. Today we had a wonderful meeting of the John Birch Society. We don't have a chapter, so it was unofficial, but that was very exciting. And the Convention of States did come up. And Brooks, I can alert you via email, but one of your constituents representing Vermont is a progressive. So I can mention her name now, or I can email to that privately.
No, you can mention it now. That's fine.
Mary Cortez. She is a representative from Addison County, and she is a progressive socialist, and quite possibly connected with much worse stuff. So,
wow. And she's one of my constituents?
Yes, I received an email from her from the Convention of States, and she is a nasty socialist progressive.
Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for the alert. You know, we have 3.5 million involved in the movement now. We have delegates in all 50 states. Unfortunately, we only have, I think, 22 states that have signed the resolution. We need 34 states, and then we can petition forcefully for the Convention of States. If you don't know what that is, it's where the states get together, they hold a convention, they write amendments to the U.S. Constitution, then those amendments are sent out to 38 states, all 50, but they need 38 states to ratify those amendments, and they become law. They become amendments to the Constitution. And, of course, the areas of concentration that we're focused on, number one is term limits for Congress and the Senate, and number two is repealing the 16th Amendment and changing the way the U.S. government funds itself. And the third, and probably the most important, although it's the most contested, is the Commerce Clause, which gives all the agencies, departments, bureaus, and administrations their federal authority. Our goal is to take that federal authority away. So I appreciate that. And send me that information. I'll put it in the newsletter tonight and send it out. You never know. Some people might drive over state lines to join your event. We do this sometimes with state house events, and sometimes we get 300 people there. So we'll see what happens.
Thanks, Brooks. Well, I want to warn people about the danger of being exposed to JAD cards. Just being in a room full of firefighters the other night seems to have almost gotten my cat sick, who was sleeping next to me, and he was falling over and had no balance. And fortunately, the symptoms went away, but it was scary.
Wow.
I have a quick space question, 2 space questions. Can I go ahead with that, please? Okay, one was I was listening to you about a year ago, and I went outside, and I saw a train of satellites. Brooks, have you heard of this train of satellites moving
Yes.
from west to east?
Yeah.
Okay, is that the CubeSats?
Yes, these are CubeSats. They're set up to deliver high-speed internet from space. There are, I think over 1,500 of them up there now. So there's a lot more satellites. Now, you're not going to see these satellites after about 10:30 at night. The sun has to be over the horizon and has to be dark, but it has to have an angle to reach those satellites because they're gold in color on the outside and they do sparkle in the sunlight. But after about 10:30 at night, you're not going to see them because the sun's going to be too far over the horizon, but they're still there.
Yes, well, I have seen them twice, and they proceeded for at least 15 minutes. Every single one perfectly aligned except for one was just slightly misaligned. That was fascinating. And here's my final question, Brooks. I occasionally have this phenomena, and I'm sure you've heard about this, where I see a flash in the sky, a bright flash, like a camera flash.
Yeah.
And sometimes it will flash several times for me. And usually from my location, it's been in the same place. I won't reveal where. But have you any idea what that could possibly be?
Yes, these are satellites that have solar arrays, and what happens is they're rotating, and when they rotate, the sun's light reflects off of those and can flash your location. And they're bright white. I have to say, some people call it powering up. And some of them that roll over really slowly, these kind of go from a really pale kind of silver to a really bright light, and then they fade out again. But some of them are rotating pretty quickly, and this causes the flash that you see. And usually they happen somewhere in the constellation of Cassiopeia.
Is that near the Big Dipper?
It is, if you're looking at the Big Dipper, it is to the right of it.
That's often where I see it.
Yeah, Cassiopeia is, for most people in the northern hemisphere, is just about the right place for that flash to occur, because it's the right time of night. That happens to be over the northern hemisphere at about the right time. So that's the constellation that it normally takes place in.
Brooks, thank you so much for taking my call. I will send that email. You've received my emails before. It's going to be the Green Dragon. And I encourage all the listeners, buy all of Brooks Agnew's books. I've read 9 out of 11 of them, and I own the other 2, and some of the very, very best stuff I have ever read. I can't recommend one more than the other. They are all fantastic. So thank you so much for everything you do, Brooks, and I always include you in my prayers and all of our Patriot and Faith community, as well as our Revolution Radio community and PFR. So thank you again, Brooks.
Those prayers are felt. Thank you so much for the call. All right. TFR is on break for about 2 more minutes. I'm going to hang out just for a second before I start the next segment. But I can't tell you how moved I am by the listeners of this program. And we've been on the air for 17 years. Actually, 17 years this month. And it's been a long time coming. We were audio for 10 years, and then we kind of dabbled a little bit in video and podcasting, but the technology just wasn't there yet. And then about 2 years ago, we started streaming on YouTube, got banned 2 or 3 times, and figured that maybe this isn't the right venue for us. But then a restreaming technology came on because the demand was there. It's not cheap, but it cost us $400 or $500 a year. That's out of reach for a lot of podcasters. But, we do that. We spend about $2,000-$3,000 a year to bring you this program, and I pay for it out of my pocket. I do get contributions from time to time, and all of that is heartfelt and much appreciated. But I don't do this for a living. I have a living. I make good money. I'm a professional engineer. And I work usually exclusively for the Fortune 500. Right now I'm working for around Fortune 100. I can't give you the name of the company, of course, but sometimes I do work with startups. And I do have a class that runs 2 Saturdays each month called the Manifestation Masterclass. And this class gives you access to all of my engineering capabilities. We bring you a 1.5 hour lecture from Remembering the Future, the Physics of the Soul and Time Travel, which book you get for free. It's part of the class for the $47. And then you get 5.5 hours of me face-to-face. You can ask any questions that you want. And then you can also book me hour by hour, and I will sit down and meet with you and go over your personal project or whatever kind of breakthrough you're looking for, and we can help you manifest your own future. So, yes, the classes are pretty good. They are me, but it's as good as it gets around here. So I can just tell you that the Fortune 500 pay me very well. They don't do things perfectly, and sometimes they have launches and restarts and failures that they're trying to fix. And they have thousands of employees. Some of them have tens of thousands of employees. But who do they call? They call me, and I come in and fix their issues. Now, you got all that for $47. There's no better deal on the internet. It's easy to do. Go to my website, brooksagnew.com. Click on the webinars in the menu, and just follow the instructions. It's super easy. Super easy. I've made it so easy. The idea is I don't feel good about charging you a condo payment for my class. I charge you $47, which is about the price of a movie with popcorn. And I promise you the information that you get will be the breakthrough you're looking for. It's as simple as that. All right, let's get back. TFR is back online. Welcome, Truth Frequency Freaks, and we're glad you're back online with us. The phone lines are open, and we are taking calls. I want to talk a little about the DACA. The DACA illegals, which this was an Obama-era program that gave illegal immigrants brought to the U.S. as children protected status. You'll recall that Senator Ted Cruz, along with Texas, and then were joined by 23 other states, sued the Obama administration to stop them from printing green cards, which is a step to citizenship, printing green cards and sending them out to DACA individuals and their families. There was a big push, and they stopped 100,000 of these cards being printed and sent out. And ever since then, the DACA people have, in the progressive realm, had special status. They're now facing serious legal jeopardy after a federal judge in Texas invalidated the initiative in a ruling that declared it illegal. Now, I understand that an appeal has been filed, and so naturally, a lot more money is going to be spent, and that's going to be set aside, and it's going to be the reign of the judges all over again. But the ruling, which was handed down by Judge Andrew Hannon of the U.S. District Court in Houston, which is not the most conservative city. I've been to Houston many times. I went to a Trump rally there. We loved that place. We had such a love pulse that summer of 2018 with President Trump speaking at the Toyota Center. You cannot believe we filled the streets of Houston. Well, evidently that love pulse is still hanging out, because this is Houston we're talking about, right? A federal judge in Houston invalidated the initiative and called it illegal. And it's temporarily going to block all new applications to the program. However, this ruling would bar future applications, but does not immediately cancel current permits for hundreds of thousands of people. Many of these are adults now, 30 years plus, and many of them have committed crimes and they have been put in prison, but they're prevented from being deported. Nuances in the judge's decision will allow the program to stand for now. The DACA program offers temporary protections to immigrants in the country without legal authorization who were 30 years old or younger when it was first introduced. To qualify, the recipients have to have arrived in the U.S. by the year 2007. And this is before they turn 16. And they must satisfy other conditions like being a student or a graduate and having no major criminal record. The ones that do have the criminal record are not granted the DACA status, but to my knowledge, none of them have been deported. They're still in the system and they're released back into American communities. Obama created the program by executive fiat, which was against the Constitution. There was a bill called the DREAM Act, and it failed to pass Congress. So Obama took action on his own and pushed it through. Anyway, the people's will was thwarted by the executive. If government can't rectify the judge's complaints, the Democrats are saying, something that would likely require congressional action, then the program may be scrapped altogether. So far, the program has extended legal status to roughly 800,000 illegal migrants brought to the U.S. as children. Now, this is not the true number. No. 800,000 is not the true number. The number is actually about 4.2 million. Why do I say that? Because of chain migration. You see, these DACA recipients receive this special status because they speak English. Most of them not seen any country outside of America since they were kids. But they are able to petition to bring their extended families from wherever they are. I don't care if it's Biafra or the Congo or Mexico or Guatemala or any of them. They're able to bring their extended family here to the U.S. to live. It's called chain migration. So the 800,000 is not a true number. It's more like 4.2 million. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's two metropolitans the size of Charlotte brought into the United States. Now, the Supreme Court has already ruled on DACA in the past, but you got to remember that these are court cases that are brought to the judges. These aren't like rulings that they make on regulations or laws on their own. A case has to be brought up from the lower courts to the Supreme Court. The state of Texas, of course, led the effort to terminate the program, and there were 23 other states that joined it. Officials in those states had argued that the program was improperly adopted because of the executive order of Obama, and it put a financial burden on states that had no representation in that decision, and it left them with the burden of paying for the education, the health care, the housing, all the other benefits for these migrant children. It was a big deal. It was a big economic deal, and it was worth billions and billions of dollars, and it was done with the stroke of a pen. Now, federal judges appointed by Trump, more than hundreds and hundreds of them, are now being able to take apart these things if lawsuits are brought to them in their court system. Now, when Michael was on, he brought up the Cuban problem. It's a big problem for the dictators of Cuba. And there are some parts of the U.S. where municipal elected officials who are ordinarily concerned with things like, trash removal or parking regulations and, petty graft, they're occasionally expected to take passionate stances on foreign policy issues. Israel would be that issue in certain heavily Jewish enclaves around the New York City area and Florida, although recently those political dynamics have shifted somewhat. And in select Hudson County, New Jersey, towns like North Bergen, West New York, Gutenberg, and Union City, that foreign policy issue is not Israel, it's Cuba. Although, I can give you an example here. Let's see. Yes, although he conceded he was not an expert and therefore not in a position to recommend any specific U.S. policy action in response to protests currently underway in the island nation. North Bergen Public Safety Commissioner, his name is Alan Pasquale, said this week he longed for the days when the Rat Pack would run wild in Cuba. That's like going back to 1959, when the Rat Pack of actors would go down to Cuba and go play the clubs, because it was a free country then. It was an elegant country. It was a vacation country. It took in billions of dollars, and it was a lot of money in the 60s and the 50s. So that's the kind of, Wikipedia-level cultural nostalgia driving at least some portion of the Cuban-related movement right now. When Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, and of course all their entourage would go down there amid the plumes of cigar smoke and Latin music, and they would just rock the city of Havana. Now, Pasquale had been participating in an emergency Cuban liberation rally, and it was a march that kicked off in his stomping grounds of North Bergen, New Jersey, and then it proceeded south down through Gutenberg and culminated at City Hall in West New York. Now, it's estimated there were between about 2,000 and 4,000 people. That's a pretty good group, enough to make some noise. But don't hold me to that. I'm just estimating. In any event, the participants were substantially more rabid than you would see at any pro-Israel rally. Okay, these people are excited. These people are pissed, and they're not violent. They're just more politically outspoken, let's say, and they're sometimes referred to as Havana on the Hudson. This area is populated by the largest enclave of Cuban Americans outside of Florida. Hudson County is also a place where you can simultaneously serve as a New Jersey state senator and mayor, which is absolutely brilliant for accumulating an entrenching political cash, as well as accumulating and entrenching one's public pension, because you get both of them. Now, Brian Stack has been the mayor of Union City for nearly 21 years and is a simultaneous New Jersey state senator for 13 years. Yes, it can be done. As one of the few English speakers addressing the rally, Mr. Stack really let loose and explicitly called for a U.S. military invasion of Cuba. The same as we've liberated other countries, he subsequently said. We should have been in Cuba many, many years ago, just like we went in and liberated Kuwait. Cuba, no doubt about it, should be a democracy. And we have a great opportunity now with something that's 90 miles off the Florida Keys to make it a democracy. Whether U.S. military inventions should inspire confidence in the success of this plan, hard to say. He said, listen, I'm not here to judge the invasions around the world. Fortunately for those who regard a potential U.S. invasion of Cuba as insane, Brian Stack doesn't have direct influence over the conduct of U.S. foreign policy, not like Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals. He is an elected official in one of the few parts of the country where there is genuinely a mass constituency for U.S. military action against Cuba, against the Cuban dictatorship, I should say. And from the standpoint of political self-interest, his rabble-rousing activities are perfectly explicable. But he does have an influence over Democratic Party machine politics, which are very strong and very rich in New Jersey. And I can tell you there are currently campaign billboards that are all over the place in New Jersey, and they have his photo on it, smiling, alongside Governor Phil Murphy. Both of them have just prevailed in uncontested Democrat state primaries. Stack is one of the many New Jersey Democrat power brokers who endorsed Chris Christie. And he was not a mere participant at this Cuban liberation extravaganza. Stack personally organized the rally on 24 hours' notice, along with fellow Democrat mayors Nicholas Sacco, Wayne Zitt, and Gabriel Rodriguez. So this was effectively a state-run and state-endorsed event, which is a curious contrast to Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals. Okay? Sacco is another quintessentially New Jersey political creature. Amazingly, he's been mayor of North Bergen since 1991, and he's also been a state senator since 1994. So he draws two salaries. He does draw two pensions for 27 years. He's double dipping, but he's also double working. He said, if it takes the force and strength of the United States, it should be used to free those people. Now, while anything could happen, it is doubtful that Virtual Joe will accede to these demands for military intervention. But there are things that can be done. One of the things is to be able to apply technology to make sure that people have internet regardless of what the Chinese are doing. The second thing that could be done, and we were talking about this with Michael earlier on the phone, is the U.S. could pass a policy, and they could do it in the next hour if they wanted to. China, stay out. This is not Taiwan. This is Cuba. Cuba is ours. Cuba belongs to us. We tolerate it, but stay out. No ships, no planes, no advisors, and get your damn internet people out of there right now. That's one thing we could do. The second thing we could do, of course, is say the same thing to Russia. Russia, stay out. Don't bring any boats. Don't bring any planes. No shipping containers full of technology. Out. Okay? The third thing that we could do is a little bit more controversial, but I think that those of you that are listening live on Foxhole, on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc., you have to know there are a couple ways into communism. One is revolution, one is elections. And when you vote communism in, or when you allow the revolution to win and begin to take over the offices and make policy, there's only one way out. History has told us this. Since the turn of the 20th century, we're talking about early 1900, the only way out is blood. I hate to say that, but you don't have elections and vote communism out. It doesn't happen. It's never happened before. Never. You have elections and voting it in, but there is no voting it out. Because once they're in, once they control the agencies, departments, bureaus, administrations of that government, and they control the military, you're not getting out. You're not voting it out. It doesn't happen. The only way out is blood. And I don't want to see it happen. I want to see as little as possible. But you have several million Cubans who are in the streets as I speak right now. They may be listening to this program. There are aspects, there are enclaves inside the United States that are sympathetic to the people of Cuba. We listen to the music. We love the people. They're smart. They're dedicated. They are not whiners. They don't sit around like crybabies and not work. They're hard-working people. If you don't believe me, go down to Florida and look. The Cuban communities down there are pristine clean. Their buildings are gorgeous. Their food is amazing. Their music is like nothing on the planet. Cubans are amazing people. They have an amazing heritage going back perhaps 1,000 years. And right now, they're not free. And all the Cuban Americans within the sound of my voice right now, yes, you can pray. Yes, you can send money, which could take a long time to get there, could take months to get there. I heard recently on a video that it cost $200 American to buy a pound of rice. And guess what? There are no American dollars in circulation in Cuba. Those American dollars come from American families and American friends in America. They smuggle the money in. And if you don't have a friend, you don't have family in the United States, you have to make your own way. I heard that if you have a member of your family die, you have to come pick them up. You have to come pick them up. And if you don't have a car, you have to walk down the sidewalk carrying your dead family member. What do you do with them? They don't care. That's up to you. You don't have access to a cemetery. You don't have access to a crematorium or a plot somewhere or a vault somewhere. You can understand what an inconvenience this is as a community that is God-fearing, that is close. And by the way, Cuban families don't have abortions. Cuban families don't kill their babies. They revere their families. They love their families. There is nothing like the love in a Cuban family. It's amazing. Such passion, such incredible talent. And these people deserve to be free. Now, no matter how alienated the U.S. populace is, and we are alienated right now because I wrote a book called Alienated Nation in 2012. That's what it's all about. It's about the Convention of States. It's about us. But we're alienated with U.S. interventionism. We don't like it. We just backed out of it in Iraq and Afghanistan. And those people are going to suffer because of our backing out, because we didn't set up systems that help them protect themselves against the Taliban. But that's a long ways away. That's on the other side of the world. It's in another hemisphere. Cuba is our neighbor. Cuba needs to be free. The music of Cuba, the food of Cuba, the hotels, the wonderful culture, the amazing beaches of Cuba need to be free. And the only way that's going to happen is if the present government, the present communist government, is removed. And if the United States wanted to do it, it could be done by Wednesday. It could be finished by Wednesday. And it makes sense, given that the U.S. is one of the few countries with the capacity to overthrow foreign governments at will. I can tell you, as former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright once said, what's the point of having this superb military you're always talking about if we can't use it? That's their own spokesperson. It's extremely easy to posture as an anti-interventionist in the abstract. Of course it is. To stand there in your starched shirt and your suit and your pre-prepared speech with every syllable in the right place. It's easy to do that. Few would overtly brand as a committed interventionist these days. It's not popular. And then throw your skepticism out the window when it comes to specific circumstances in which you think it'd be a great idea to deploy U.S. power to topple a foreign government. But we're not talking about a foreign government now, are we? Cuba isn't really foreign to us. Cuba's a neighbor that we have let suffer. During World War II, as I said earlier tonight, the Allies dropped 45 caliber single-shot pistols with ammunition by airplane into Germany, 1 million of them. 300 people built all of those. Yeah, 300 people. They were aluminum cast single-shot pistols. And they dropped them in with a cartoon explaining how to load and fire the weapon. It was designed to allow insurgents to kill a Nazi soldier and take his weapon, and thus arming the rebellion against the Nazis. Now, I really feared that this would happen last week in Cuba. I thought, and it may still happen. But we live in a neural network, okay, where millions of people can form an unstoppable conscious energy if they can connect and align with one another. So Americans, in support of the people who want freedom in Cuba, have dropped that ability back into the darkness of that island. And you can see the effect it's having. The Cuban regime used China-made technology systems to block that effort. They blocked the internet. They blocked cell phone service to prevent pictures and videos of what was happening on the ground to be published online, nearly impossible for the outside world to see. The regime also blocked popular social media channels. It would make organized protesting impossible. And remember a decade ago, I was in Egypt at the time, and I escaped. I escaped right before an event that we call the Arab Spring. Facebook and Twitter were critical organizers to orchestrate uprisings in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Bahrain. All of this was organized on social media. The Virtual Joe administration and his gang of criminals are finding ways to provide anti-censorship tools to Cubans to access social media during the blackouts. Don't know if it's being successful or not. I think private companies are being more successful than the government. But according to Bloomberg, the U.S. government supports a censorship circumvention tool designed to unblock content in Cuba and is powered by a company called Siphon. That is Siphon. That was the name I was looking for earlier. Siphon is helping the people of Cuba. Not as many as you think, but 1,389,000,000 daily unique users access the open web from Cuba through Siphon's network this as of Thursday. Internet is on, circumvention tools are working. I can tell you it's only a matter of time before China catches up with that. Siphon uses proxy servers that disguise internet traffic so Cuban authorities can't tell if people are accessing social media platforms. This is a Canadian-based company. It's not U.S. It's a Canadian-based nonprofit. Now, they did receive money but it wasn't from Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals. The money came from Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee. She's the one that sent the money. Virtual Joe is still debating the subject. They haven't done anything. In Cuba, they cut off access to the internet, and our friends at TFR have just gone on break for 3 minutes, so I apologize for that. But the rest of you, you can keep listening, and we'll wait for Truth Frequency to come back in. And we do have a caller in Amenia, New York, hanging out there, and we'll bring them on after the break. Anyway, Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals made a comment after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis told the president the federal government should restore internet on the island. DeSantis said there's a technology that would allow the U.S. to broadcast internet access into Cuba remotely. Technology exists to provide internet access into Cuba remotely. We couldn't do it for Egypt, but we could do it for Cuba. They're close by. Using the innovation of American enterprise and the diverse industries here. That's what Governor DeSantis said. He said this reminds him of the Cold War when the U.S. funded radio stations to broadcast information into the Soviet Union. I have America Free Radio for that very reason, to broadcast truth into the United States, because the United States right now is under occupation, and it's under brute censorship and purging of truth from all social media. That's why other social media like Rumble and BitChute and DropSpace and We Go One, We Go all these networks are springing up to allow patriots to have access to the truth. Fortunately, we're small enough that we're allowed to stay, but we're big enough that we reach tens of thousands of people. And that's important. That's important. But similar to the American efforts to broadcast radio into the Soviet Union during Cold War Europe, the federal government has a history of supporting the dissemination of information into Cuba for the Cuban people through radio and television. Marti, located in Miami. Now, DeSantis urged Cuba's military to live in the history books by overthrowing the communist government. My gut tells me it's only a matter of time before the airdrops begin, and you know what I'm talking about. The problem is that the people who start a revolution are historically never the people who finish it. Remember, the CCP is standing by to fill that vacuum. The question is, will Cuba end up at the end of this free and independent again? Or will this be the bloodbath the global syndicate has been hoping for? And right now, it costs $200 American for a bag of rice, okay? It is not tenable for the Cuban people. The only way to get American dollars is smuggling from Cuban Americans, and 100% of that money stops. It stops. Dead. Once it's paid for anything. Once you buy anything in Cuba with the money, it ends. It goes into the government hands. They make it. You think it cost them $200 for a bag of rice? No. No, it cost them pennies. They keep the money. If you spend $200 in your local community here, it goes around and around your community 10 to 14 times before it leaves. Okay? If you spend it on Amazon, you're probably buying from somebody's Amazon store. That person takes that money. It doesn't go to Amazon. It goes to the person who has the Amazon store, the person that's selling, the motorcycle parts or the handbag. And that person takes that money and they spend it in their community. They pay rent. They go buy groceries. They buy gas. They get their tires changed. And that money goes around and around that community 10 to 14 times. That's called commerce. That's how it happens. But it doesn't happen that way in Cuba. That money doesn't go around. It goes in the hands of the government because the government owns everything. Okay? Meanwhile, the Cuban president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, has attacked the U.S. for their blatant and shameful attempts to fracture his country by triggering the largest anti-government protest in 3 decades. We didn't do it. We didn't do it. It was done by Cuban Americans who wrote a song. It was done by Cuban Americans who have reached a critical mass and have reached a success level as a community, who have said, enough is enough. So take a good long look at what is going on there in Cuba. Take a look. Watch it if you can. This is Virtual Joe's America. You don't think it's possible, but it is. And this is what Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals are pushing for. Okay? Let's not be them. Let's free Cuba. Viva la revolución. All right. Change the subject here a little bit. New York, are you ready to come on? Just give me a head nod. You've been on for 9 minutes and 26 seconds. And I'll tell you what. If you're out there listening, I understand. But if you have a comment pertinent to what we're talking about tonight, I'll bring you on. New York, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Things. Trump, supposedly he's supposed to be coming back and he's going to apologize for the vaccine and the med beds that they're going to use to help heal people. And then the other thing is supposed to be scalar technology from Nikola Tesla, SCALAR, scalar. Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, I'm familiar with scalar technology. I'm also an avid fan of Nikola Tesla. And I like the rumors about President Trump coming back. I'm highly involved in that community, the America First community. I went to the Patriot Voice in Dallas, Texas. I've already bought my ticket to go to the Patriot Voice Round 2 in Vegas on October 22nd. By the way, I'm going to post a link to that in my newsletter so that if you want to join me in Vegas. The one in Dallas only held 1,000 people and they sold 1,300 tickets. The one in Vegas holds 3,000 people. They are going to put 3,000 tickets out. It holds 5,000. I think it's going to sell out. So I am very connected to that America First community. And I can tell you that if President Trump comes back, it is going to be as the result of a massive constitutional crisis, which is going to be precipitated by at least 2 or more states recalling their electors from the 2020 election, which means that Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals are an illegitimate administration. And then we're in the middle of a constitutional crisis for which there is no historical record. We're in new territory, and I hope we get through it peacefully. What are your thoughts?
Well, when you say it like that, it makes it sound like maybe what they do is allow Biden to stay in office just for the fact of it not getting too crazy and hectic. At the same time, getting more and more control, hopefully, over the situation. So, like, not that they want to keep it that way, but they kind of like it's a better option to do so. It's better. I don't want to see that's the problem. This whole thing, ever since like 4 or 5 years ago, I've been pretty in tune with everything that's been going on. I've been history researching that. And the only problem is that it's such a fine line between what could be going on, whether or not it's the good side or the bad side winning.
Yes, it is a fine line, absolutely a fine line. And you're right. There are people like Mitch McConnell who would opt for what they call regular order. The regular order is we just let Virtual Joe stay as president. Sorry, we made a mistake, but you know what? It's our mistake and we own it, and Biden's going to stay in there till 2024. And then we'll have another election right on schedule. But I don't think he's going to make it. In fact, I don't think he's going to make it till Christmas. I think the day is quickly coming when he wakes up and can't speak a word.
My only problem with that is obviously the way that he's going about it in Kamala or in the country. Like, so my only problem is like they'd have to do something like the governors, and that would obviously have to be changed. So if they switch up the governors successfully, then that would be a major, they could, like, it'd be close to the close to the chest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think there are
But-
movements right now to recall governors, especially Adolph Newsom in California, maybe Governor Kemp in Georgia. But there's also a massive movement to remove secretaries of state, the ones that lorded over the illegal moves that were made in the 6 states that halted their vote in the middle of the night. If that happens, you're exactly right. This entire administration becomes illegitimate. And then it's going to take, I'm sorry to say, a sleeping Supreme Court to figure out what the hell's going on, because we're going to take actions which will provide precedent for future actions being taken in America. So we have to be very careful with the steps that we take. No violence. Everything has to be transparent. Everything has to be according to the rule of law by the Constitution. If it doesn't happen, the Constitution could be unraveled, and we could have violence. We could have moves to secede from the Union. We could have nullification efforts being done on regional bases, and this is a big, big problem. It needs to be done in a regular order.
Also, I guess there was also just talk because what's his name? The Governor Abbott in Texas. He doesn't seem to be doing a very good job, and there's talk of that before. Texas electricity going out with the whole winter storm there. But I heard supposedly that a lot of the power rests really over there with the lieutenant governor. You know anything about that? So my point is, like, if what you're saying is true about state secretaries, then there's parts in different states, obviously, where it's not necessarily the governor, but someone else's position that's the most key. So
Yeah,
there won't be necessarily governors in every state, like you said. Like if we take out the governors and Biden's ineffective, and if we take out certain secretaries and the governors are ineffective, right? Was that where you're going with that?
Yeah, it is reasonable. But what happened in Texas? Texas had access to plenty of energy to get through that short-term period of cold snap. The issue is that the Department of Energy manages the grid. Okay, that's their primary responsibility. About 70% of the budget of the Department of Energy governs nuclear power plants. And the issue is that we were talking about interstate transfer of power over the power lines to supplement the grid in Texas. That effort was blocked by Biden's Department of Energy. And so Texas was intentionally starved of the additional power that they needed to make up their grid. Texas is perfectly capable of staying warm during that period of time. This was a federal effort that was taken against a Trump-supporting state in order to erode the effectiveness of Governor Abbott. That's why it was done. Listen, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much, New York, for calling. Always great insights. I want to talk a little bit about science. We love science here at America Free Radio. By the way, thank you very much, Life of Brian, for that generous contribution through Top Chat on YouTube. You could always access that. There are other ways. You can go to my website, become a patron of mine through Patreon. You can support me through Stripe or Venmo or a variety of different ways. Of course, PayPal link is right there at the top of YouTube if you want to do that as well. Lots of ways to support the program. I'm generous with the money. All the money that comes in here goes into an account that is growing. We're trying to reach a point of $25,000. Then I'll probably match that, which will bring it to enough money to start a GoFundMe campaign to raise the deposit for the North Pole Inner Earth expedition. I've already put my $25,000 in, but I'm willing to put another $25,000 in if the listeners and the enthusiasts for the expedition will come up with the other $25,000. That's the deal. It takes about $60,000 to run a GoFundMe campaign. Those of you that have aspirations for running one, you can forget about it. If you don't have $60,000, well, of course, if you're just trying to raise $1,000 to, get it into an apartment or help pay for an operation, go for it. But if you're trying to raise $1.5 million to make a deposit on a ship, don't even attempt it without at least 60 grand. You're just going to be throwing your money up a horse's ass, and you're going to be very frustrated. So this is how it's done. All right? You put the money in, I put the money in, we run the GoFundMe campaign, and we see where the chips fall. I think it's a popular enough venture that if we can reach, and this is the key word, it is reach, R-E-A-C-H, if we can reach the enthusiasts of the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition, they will respond. There are 40 million of them out there, documented, 40 million supporters of this expedition. We can't reach them. You can, but I can't. There's no way. Couldn't do it. Even if I was on Sean Hannity's program, we wouldn't reach 40 million people. The only way it can be done is through social media, and the only way that you can access that is a massive GoFundMe campaign. Okay? Just can't be done any other way. This is how it's done. This is the business of reach. The tech giants control it. It costs money, and that's the truth of it. All right, let's get back to it. Another human genome has been discovered. You know 23andMe, right? The government, DARPA, created a program where they were going to sample the human genome all around the world because they were trying to find Captain America. No, they were trying to find a string of genes and markers that are peculiar to a certain DNA makeup that goes all the way back to Cain. Okay, I can't say any more clear than that. And the government, the Congress said, you know what? We're not going to give you the money for that. We're not going to let you go around the world and use taxpayer money to go collect genes from people all over the world so that you can put your system together. Brad, the link is right on the screen. It's npiee.com. Okay, that's it. North Pole Inner Earth Expedition.com. For those of you that are listening by audio, that's what it is. npiee.com. If you go there, you can contribute to the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition. All the links are there. You can learn about the venture, what we're going to do, what the plans are. Support it, don't support it. I'm cool either way. But 23andMe was formed because they had a brilliant marketing plan. What about if we go out to the people of the world and we say, I'll tell you what, we'll tell you all about your heritage, where you came from, where your tribe is, what your genetic makeup is, and you pay us $99 and you send us your DNA voluntarily. Well, damn, it was popular. People bought in. Millions of people, tens of millions of people from all over the world sent in their DNA and their $99, and DARPA got their program. And what did they do? They got their DNA. They traced, and now they can tell who comes from Ireland and who comes from the Congo and who comes from Brazil, because they can trace the markers now. They have enough data that they can put the markers together, and people think that this is part of genealogy, and I'm happy about it, and boy, I'm so glad I found out where my roots are. But, of course, they're looking for that Cain DNA. They're looking for it for a reason, because they want to put that DNA into more bodies. Why? Because without that DNA, demons cannot live inside a human body. Oh, they can possess it. But I'm talking about being born into it. I'm talking about going around the well of souls and coming to earth as a mortal being with a demon soul. Yeah, and that demon soul lives and dies on the earth and thus has a path, they think, to assault the gates of heaven. This is what the war is all about. It's been about this since the beginning of time. But that DNA has been scattered and diluted all over the planet, and now only a few small bloodlines have this DNA. And so these chief demons, these master demons, are able to come to Earth and rule the world. And they do. And we're witnessing it right now. We're witnessing it. We've been witnessing it for thousands of years, but now you're aware of it because you've read the Birth Trilogy. You know what's going on. And if you haven't read the Birth Trilogy, that is easily remedied. And if you're not a good reader, that is also easily remedied because every single one of these books that you see up on the screen right now, all 11 books, well, all but 3 of them, are recorded in full audio. And I make it so simple because if you buy the book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy it, I will give you the audiobook for free. So there's no excuse. Put the book on your shelf and listen to it while you drive. Read the book and share the audiobook with your partner or your friend or your neighbor. There's no reason to hold this information back. I'm making it so simple for you. But a cup of mud that has been buried beneath the floor of a cave for millennia has just yielded up the genome of an ancient human. Analysis reveals traces of a woman who lived 25,000 years ago during the last ice age, and although we don't know much about her, she represents a significant scientific achievement. The feasibility of identifying ancient human populations even when there are no bones to recover. Oh yeah, you made it possible with 23andMe. The sample also yielded DNA from a wolf and bison species with an international team of scientists who were able to place in the context of their population histories. They said in their paper, our results provide new insights into the late Pleistocene genetic histories of these 3 species and demonstrate that direct shotgun sequencing of sediment DNA without target enrichment methods can yield genome-wide data informative of ancestry and phylogenetic relationships. The recovery of ancient DNA has typically relied rather on a lot of bones and luck. First, you need the bones to have survived and survived intact enough to preserve DNA over many thousands of years. That's difficult to do because a lot of these people die on the surface of the land, and then their bones are picked apart by mice, and you don't get them. Occasionally, these people are killed in a flood, and so their bones are locked into the sediment of a stream or a lake or an ancient, what we call a muck vent. A muck vent is like a crevice in a low hill or a low altitude mountain, and this slush of pulverized bone and meat and mud and muck slams into this vent, and then the mud retreats and it stays behind in that crevice, preserved, and it doesn't wash out. It stays preserved. It's called the muck vent. Now, you need to be able to find these and recover enough genetic material for sequencing, and it's painstaking work, but it is rewarding. And a lot of archaeological sites have more evidence of hominid use than bones. However, the cave of what's called Satsurbia in Georgia is just one site. Artifacts such as stone tools survive the rigor of time better than bones, so it's not surprising. Even so, the cave was used by ancient humans for thousands of years, and yet only a single individual's genome from the site has been sequenced, and the person lived more than 15,000 years ago. Environmental DNA that can be found preserved in the sediment is increasingly looking like an excellent way to learn more about the past. So there's a lot going on in this realm. Well, by the way, the wolf genome also represents a previously unknown, now extinct lineage. This suggests that wolf populations changed and they reshaped significantly at the end of the last ice age, about 11,000 years ago, with lineages such as this one disappearing completely. Finally, the mitochondrial DNA, which is haploid, is found in the bison genome. It can also be found in living present-day bison. The researchers found that this genome was more closely related to European bison and Eurasian bison than North American bison, because it suggests the two lineages diverged before the Satsuma cave bison's time, according to the team's analysis. The American bison came first, and then it diverged into the other populations. It's not known whether the three species lived in the cave together. At the moment, it's very difficult to narrow down the dating with enough certainty. In other words, the human was eating the bison, and the wolf, found the bison and chomped on it and ended up hanging around the cave long enough to die. Or maybe the humans in the cave said, "Hey, wolf, get the hell out of here," and killed it. Hard to say. But they're saying that these were not contemporaries. So the findings demonstrate that thanks to 23andMe and, of course, your $99 over and over again, this technology is cheap and accessible, and so digging around in the dirt can be much more revealing than we may have once believed. All right, let's talk a little bit about the devil in Georgia. This is a big deal. Democrats are mounting an all-out assault on what's called voting integrity laws. And they have a totally aligned political effort and are raising lots of money to stop the effort that's going on in Georgia to try to fix the problems with their election system. Democrat Party-aligned group dedicated to voter registration and voter turnout, which would be, you know who we're talking about. I'm not going to mention her name. The Georgia counties claiming addressing voter challenges under Section 21.2.230 violated the Federal National Voter Registration Act. Federal Judge Leslie A. Gardner, who's, by the way, the sister of, okay, I got to mention her name, Stacey Abrams. They denied Majority Forward's effort and the various individual voters' motion for a preliminary injunction in the Ben Hill County, but they granted in part a preliminary injunction against Muskogee County enjoining the removal of voters from the rolls. And these voters are voters that moved to other counties. They're voters that died. I don't know why we would want to remove dead voters from the rolls. I mean, what's Stacey going to do? There's a company called Fair Fight Incorporated, the organization established by Stacey Abrams in 2014, who's under federal investigation for corruption, also attempted to preempt pre-election challenges to determine the legal status of voters by suing True the Vote, as well as Mark Davis and several other individuals. Fair Fight's lawsuit claimed that by challenging the right of electors to vote in a specific county, the defendants had violated Section 11 of the Voting Rights Act, which makes it illegal to harass or intimidate voters, even if they're dead. And you have to understand that there are three major classes of voters, any one of which could have changed the outcome of the election. The first are, of course, dead voters. The second are voters that have moved to another county or moved into that county and did not update their voter registration. And the third are people that registered to vote after the deadline. So if you register to vote after October 15th, you're not allowed to vote in the current election. That's against Georgia state law. Those laws were ignored, and enough people to turn the results of the election voted anyway, illegally. So those are the first three, and there are other classes which make it even more of a close election than what it was, only 12,000 votes separating President Trump winning the state of Georgia. Now, the federal court denied Fair Fight Inc.'s motion for a preliminary injunction. They found that Stacey Abrams had not established a strong likelihood of success on the merits. The court stressed that this case is not yet over. Presiding federal judge Steve Jones, who is, by the way, a Barack Obama appointee, added that the 11th hour challenge to the franchise of more than 360,000 Georgians is suspect. So too is the manner in which defendants mounted their challenges. The court will not abide attempts to sidestep federal law to disenfranchise voters, nor will it tolerate actors brandishing these voter challenges to intimidate and diminish the franchise, for such acts diminish democracy itself. Very eloquently said, but empty words. What Judge Jones actually ignored is the reality that every illegal voter disenfranchises a legal one. That's the main argument here. That's why the injunction was sought. And what Republicans ignore is the reality that right now Democrats and their partners in the press, the global media empire, under the guise of protecting the right to vote, which is a joke, are poised to push through H.R. 1, which is gutting the current voter laws, and it's woefully inadequate, and it opens everything to massive corruption because everything can be mailed in with no ID. And yes, Raffensperger should not have proclaimed after the November 2020 election that there were not enough illegal votes to affect the presidential election's outcome. There absolutely were. And Trump also should not have exaggerated the extent of voter fraud, which now makes it more difficult for the public to learn the evidence of illegal voting. But it's coming. It's coming. It may not have been millions of votes, but it could have been hundreds of thousands of votes, and that is enough. At this point, here's what matters. The truth. The truth matters. The truth needs to be exposed. And the Democrats' efforts to disenfranchise legal voters needs to be stopped. That's what we're talking about here. All right, let's talk a little bit more about science. Yes, term limits on politicians. Chad Christian Erickson, exactly right. That's what we fight for with the Convention of States. I know you're saying we do have term limits. It's called elections. No, it's not, because we don't have elections. We don't have fair elections. What we have is a business model called Ballots R Us. When they need a candidate in office to do their bidding, they buy it. They buy him. They buy him. And in order to get that candidate into office and keep the actual voters of the state from preventing that bought and paid for puppet, that fascist puppet, to take office, they have to stop the legal vote from taking place. And how do they do that? Well, they disenfranchise them by bringing in Ballots R Us in the middle of the night. As soon as they realize how many votes they need to win, they just pick up the phone, they call Ballots R Us and say, hey, we need 80,000 ballots over here right now. We'll stick them in the voting machines, and they'll go right in. We'll call them mail-in ballots. But these ballots are printed in China on counterfeit paper, and they're not folded. This is exactly what happened in Arizona. 74,000 mail-in ballots arrived and were counted, then were mailed out. They didn't print them. The state didn't print them on their official paper and mail them out. These ballots weren't creased. They weren't handled by the U.S. Post Office. They didn't go to an actual voter. They were printed by machine, and they were dropped into the system. 74,000 of them. They've been found. They've been identified. They've been serialized. The proof is in the ballot itself, in the paper ballot itself. 74,000, and by the way, Trump only lost by 12,000 votes. So Arizona is Trump's. And that's not even counting the over 200,000 votes that shouldn't have counted. And why? Because chain of custody papers weren't with the votes. These packets came in hundreds of them, and hundreds of packets of hundreds of votes, all for Biden. 100 to 0, 150 to 0, 200 to 0, over and over, hundreds of these packets. It adds up to over 200,000 votes. They shouldn't have been counted because there was no chain of custody and no batch of ballots. I don't care. It's like when Barack Obama ran against Mitt Romney in Pennsylvania, and 9 whole precincts full of voters, zero votes for Mitt Romney. 0 over 9 precincts. Not possible. Statistically not possible unless his name wasn't even on the ballot, which it was. I'm just saying, Arizona was won by Trump. Georgia was won by Trump. Pennsylvania was won by Trump. New Hampshire, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, all won by Trump. Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals should not have ever been granted the first executive order. All right, let's talk a little bit about science. What about those auroras on Jupiter? You know, Earth isn't the only world adorned with glowing atmospheric phenomenon, right? Because they glow, the poles glow only in non-visible wavelengths. We can't see them with the naked eye, so it wasn't until just 40 years ago when they discovered these auroras on Jupiter. And ever since, scientists have wondered how these auroras produce the periodic bursts of X radiation. Now they've solved it. Using simultaneous observations from Jupiter probe Juno and X-ray Space Observatory, which is called the XMM Newton, a team led by planetary scientist Zhanghua Yao of the Chinese Academy of Sciences in China has linked the X-ray burst to vibrations in the gas giant's magnetic field lines. Now, that's still amazing because these vibrations, they generate waves in the plasma propagating along the magnetic field lines. And you know, a plasma is just a gas that will conduct electricity. That's the pure definition of a plasma. And plasma can give off visible light. We could see it in our fluorescent light bulbs and neon light bulbs. That's a plasma. But it doesn't have to be invisible. It can be in the ultraviolet, like fluorescent lights would all be ultraviolet except for the dope on the inside of the glass. But it can be even shorter wavelengths and in the X class of radiation. So here on Earth, the auroras are generated by the particles blowing in from the sun, okay? And they collide with Earth's magnetic field. It sends charged particles like protons and electrons whizzing along the magnetic field lines toward the poles where they rain down on Earth's upper atmosphere. And they collide with atmospheric particles, sputtering off electrons and fluorescing. And that's why we see the stunning auroras. But on Jupiter, there are quite a few differences. The auroras are constant. They're there all the time. They're permanent. And that's because the particles don't come from the sun. The sun doesn't reach that far out and that way. But they come from the Jovian moon Io. Yeah. You see, Io is a volcanic world in the solar system, and it's constantly erupting sulfur dioxide, which is immediately stripped via complex gravitational interaction with the planet, because Jupiter's a big planet with a lot of gravity. And it pulls these sulfur dioxide particles through space, and they go slamming into Jupiter's atmosphere. And then there are X-ray pulses. And to figure out how they're being generated, the research team studied the planet using simultaneous observations, as I said. And based on the observations, the team linked Juno's observation of the plasma with the XMM Newton's observation of the X-ray auroral bursts. And with computer modeling, they determined how the two phenomenon were linked. Now, it's at this point kind of unclear what drives the compressions in Jupiter's magnetic field. That's the main thing, you see, because flux lines by rule are unbroken. You just can't break a magnetic flux line. But you can change their course. You can bend them with gravity and with other magnetic forces and with electricity. And it could be a little bit of the solar wind, which, circulating with enough heavy materials like you see in the rings of Saturn, etc., it could have an effect like that. So similar processes likely occur around Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and that's why we see auroras over those poles as well. We don't have the dual way of looking at these planets because we don't have probes that go around those planets, Uranus, etc. We do, but it takes a long time to go all the way around Saturn and all the way around Uranus, so we don't get those views like we have of Jupiter. And the results show that the EMIC waves could be playing an important and heretofore unnoticed role in the ion dynamics of Jupiter's atmosphere. And it's going to help us better understand plasma processes across the galaxy. If you want to read more, I'll put the link in my notes under Science Advances. Now, I'm having some server issues. After we upgraded the servers at the beginning of the year, we were having problems because we sped things up significantly. We changed hardware. And a lot of the things that got scattered, a lot of the audiobooks had to be restructured and things like that. But all that's fixed. And the issue we're having right now is even though we have 79 gigabytes of space, it says that we're out of space. So I am speaking with the virtual private server company to try to figure that out. Hopefully we get that figured out this week. So if you've been trying to access my notes by going to the fantastic link we have at americafreeradio.com that allows you to catch up with 30 to 50 pages of notes that I take every single week that I accumulate from which I do these programs. You haven't been able to do that for 3 weeks because we've had these server issues. We're going to get them resolved this week, and then I'm going to upload the last 3 weeks of notes, and you'll have them along with tonight's, and you'll be able to access this article from Science Advances. Let's see. Where are we going to go from here? Oh, let's put it on our Pluto screen. So I'm going to go ahead and Foxhole. I'm going to go ahead and open up the lotto tickets. I think that's a good idea. We have about an hour, so I'm going to release those lotto tickets. People in Foxhole can start accessing those and putting gold pills in your pocket. And I think I'm going to do the same thing in DLive right now. Let's see here. Let's add 50. I'm waiting for the software to catch up. I'm going to add another 50, which will bring it to 100 and something. So there's about 106 lemons, and I'm going to go ahead and launch those on DLive as well right now. So we're going to distribute those. We'll find out in about 25 seconds who in DLive won that lottery. And I can see there's already 3 people that have picked up gold pills in Foxhole. Both these are viable cryptocurrencies. You can link them to your bank account and you can withdraw them and buy stuff with it. Or you can keep it in there and trade around and support the program or other programs, because right now Speaking Easy's live, NPC's live, Magical Terror's live, PSB's live, Salty Crackers live, Patriot News, Singing Pretty, 412 Anon, 3 Beer Men, and Coffee with Sandra are all live right now on Foxhole. So you could cruise around to all those other programs and support all the other people. And Old Dog is a big winner tonight with 29.6, Flawless in the USA 17.4, Mad Hat 1, 12.9, Big D 1955 10.4, and what is that? I don't even know how to Bouquet Gammy. Okay. 8.9. Very nice. So those are all listeners in DLive. The first was listeners in Foxhole. And of course, we're streaming live on Twitch and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube as well. Lots of people in YouTube. Yeah, I agree. Who is that? Chad says he thinks Jupiter's a failed sun. Could be big enough to be a star, but I think it's too large in diameter. I think it needs to collapse a little bit on its own gravity to develop the fusion to light off its atmosphere. And I'm in agreement with Life of Brian. He says, I'm electric universe all the way. Yeah, I am. Because gravity doesn't explain everything. But the electric universe does, especially the formation of stars and solar systems from plasma clouds. We used to be a big believer in accretion disk theory, and maybe that is the way some solar systems form, but we don't have much evidence of that. What we have is more evidence that electric universe is what forms, and this can be sudden and cataclysmic. All right, Virtual Joe is all about deleting free speech. We know that. We've suffered from that here on America Free Radio. We have been kicked off the air on Facebook and YouTube, which is Google. But one day after disclosing that Virtual Joe has been flagging problematic posts for Facebook to remove. Now, this is a very big deal because this is fascism at its finest. Now, it goes both ways. You could say, oh, well, Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals is controlling Facebook and asking Facebook to remove any posts that are critical to Virtual Joe's administration. But I want you to consider the possibility that Facebook is controlling the administration. Yeah, I just bear with me for a second, because fascism works like that. Big corporations put their officers inside government agencies like the Food and Drug Administration for Big Pharma, or the Department of Energy for Big Oil, or the Department of Transportation for the big major car makers, to keep startup car makers from coming into the market and introducing a new vehicle like, Rivian or EV Fleet or other companies like that. We can't allow these startups to introduce new technology, so they put their officers inside those agencies like the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and they create a mountain of regulations that make it impossible for startups to enter the market. Yes, that's fascism, but think about this for a moment. Virtual Joe has been flagging these problematic posts for Facebook to remove, which they do very promptly. Even White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that anyone banned on one social media platform should be banned on all of them. Platforms such as Facebook, she said at the daily briefing, should measure and publicly share the impact of misinformation on their platform. And they should create robust enforcement strategies. I can't even put my arms around how earth-shaking that statement is. Think about it for a second. Who gets to measure? Who gets to determine what's misinformation? Normally in a free society, that would be us, right? That would be the listener. Oh, that's misinformation. I'm not listening to that. It's our choice. We're the ones that buy the magazine or don't buy the magazine. We're the ones that read the newspaper or don't read the newspaper. We're the ones with the freaking remote in our hands. We're the ones that choose the channel, not you. And create robust enforcement strategies. In other words, fascist police, enforcement. We take you out. We block your bank account. We take your broadcast away. We cut your throat. You shouldn't be banned from one platform and not others for providing misinformation, she said. all of them. We kill you. We kill you. We come to your virtual house and we slit your freaking virtual throat. Thursday of this week, Pisaki disclosed that the Virtual Joe administration is flagging Facebook posts that the administration deems to be misinformation about COVID-19 and the panicdemic. She defended that policy the day before yesterday. Yeah. White House correspondent Peter Doocy, did you catch it? He challenged her, pointing out Facebook at one time censored COVID lab leak theory as misinformation. Ding dong, it's real. Doocy began by asking how long the Virtual Joe administration has been spying on people's Facebook profiles looking for vaccine information. Well, that was quite a loaded and inaccurate question, which I would refute, Pisaki said. She argued the administration is in regular touch with a range of media outlets, as we are in regular touch with social media platforms. This is publicly open information, by the way. People sharing information online, just as you are all reporting information on your news stations, she said. Doocy didn't buy it. He asked if the 12 people Pisaki said Thursday were responsible for about 65% of the anti-vaccine information on social media platforms know that someone in the U.S. Surgeon General's office is going through their profile. I'm happy to get you to the citation of where that comes from, she said. There's no secret list. I will tell you that these are people who are sharing information on public platforms on Facebook. Information that is traveling is inaccurate, she said. Our biggest concern here, and I frankly think it should be your biggest concern, is the number of people who are dying around the country because they're getting in misinformation that is leading them to not take the vaccine. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Doocy said the administration's spotlighting of the 12 people amounts to Big Brother watching you. Meanwhile, President Virtual Joe was asked by a reporter Friday, what's your message to platforms like Facebook? Barely able to keep from crapping his pants, he said they're killing people. He added that the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated, and they're killing people. Really? Along with artificial intelligence tools, Facebook deploys panels, fact-checkers, who remove information that doesn't comport with the views of selected experts. Well, it was the panel that interested me most. Facebook's Oversight Board. Oh, you're going to love this. Facebook's Oversight Board's chair, the co-chair, and Helle Thorning-Schmidt. Now, they like to call her Thorning-Schmidt. I'm going to call her Hell. She made it very clear that she does not believe free speech is a human right. You know who she is. Oh yes, you do. You recall the memorial event where Hell and Barack Obama were flirting? The cameras caught it. You know what it looks like, don't you? Well, so did Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama was famously photographed shooting the Le Boss de la Maison Blanche, which some French news outlets are inartfully calling Le Regard Noir, which literally is a black look, or what we call the stink eye. Now you know who she is, right? The tall blonde. Wait until you hear what she is doing. How do you moderate content, and how do you find that balance between human rights and free speech? Really? No. Free speech is not an absolute human right. Hell asked during she was asked during a live stream this week. it has to be balanced with all human rights. And that is what the oversight is there to do, she added. Hell is the finger buddy of Obama. And now she is one of the 20 people who sit on Facebook's newest attempt to create a mass censorship campaign, which the White House just recently publicly endorsed. Enforcement actions. The board masquerades as a means of providing support to people's right to free expression and ensure those rights are being adequately respected. Hell's actions, however, contradict that mission quite starkly. Oh, hell has fury. And once she was pointed in the right direction and fired like a black laser, her actions spoke louder than her sexual manipulations, if that's possible. She enacted President Donald Trump's plan from the She wiped President Trump's ban from the platform. She enacted the ban from the platform and the board's continued efforts to subdue alternative opinions about COVID-19. There was no free speech. You weren't allowed to talk about a cure. You weren't allowed to talk about therapeutics. No comments about China or the fascists. At no time in history has anyone ever censored a sitting president in the United States. Freedom of expression is a fundamental human right, the website clearly states. And yet hell, under the expert hands of Obama, spewed anti-free speech rhetoric like a Nordic molten stone. Instead of promoting and respecting free expression through independent judgment, as the oversight organization pledges to do, at least half of the, quote, outside experts and civic leaders, close quote, who sit on this exclusive board are products of and often contribute to academic think tank dwellers who make up the protective core of the global syndicate. Hell is just one of the many ultra-elite censorship czars Facebook parades for us, despite promises to promote diversity. Much like former Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom Nick Clegg's quick rise to prominence within the big tech company after joining in 2018, Hell assumed the role as one of the 4 co-chairs of the Oversight Committee shortly after its establishment in 2020. Remarkable, wasn't it? January 5th, 2020. Just ask Kamala. She'll tell you what a sexy smile will get you. Under her profile on the website, the Oversight Board touts Hell's experience as former Prime Minister of Denmark, membership in multiple parliaments, her expertise in human rights, and her deep connections to foreign policy think tanks as reasons why she brings insight to the censorship organization. See? All of these chairs are butt-stained by the most brutal and ruthless men to have walked the face of the earth. These think tanks are the ones writing our laws now. They are written as behemoth encyclopedias of fascist regulations designed to prevent any competition with their boards or corporations. Hell serves on multiple corporate boards across the globe. She, a merit held by several others on the suppression committee who were chosen by Facebook and the 4 co-chairs. These members of Facebook's censorship board are the guardians of corporate monopolies in every country in the freaking world, including America. Many of the other members have also been entrenched in the global swamp of politics, government, and corrupt corporate media for decades, such as former Clinton and Obama administration staffer Suzanne Nossel, who publicly called the New York Times' controversial decision to run Senator Tom Cotton's call for law and order a mistake. And Maina Kiai, a former United Nations Special Rapporteur on the rights to freedom to peacefully assemble and of association. And Emile Palmore, the former Director General of the Ministry of Justice in Israel. Michael Connell, another board member, by the way, who was initiated at the Oversight Committee's creation in 2020, serves as a U.S. Circuit Judge on the Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit before spending time as the director of the Stanford Constitutional Law Center at Stanford Law School. Ronaldo Lemos, he didn't do time in the government, but shortly after he joined the Social Media Censorship Committee, he accepted a position as a visiting chair professor of technology at the Schwarzman College at Tsinghua University in Beijing, China. This is the same organization that is jamming the internet in Cuba as we speak. Anti-free speech academic officers such as Sudhir Krishnaswamy, Alan Rusbridger, made the executive decision to destroy hard drives containing information leaked to The Guardian by guess who? Edward Snowden. And while members joined the board with the intent to expel what they saw as harmful content, what they deemed as misinformation, they forced the banning or suppression by ever-shifting Facebook policies through a difficult appeals process filled with stipulations and hoops, which you all already know about, don't you? Because they want to express new emphasis on content regulation as fully artificially intelligent and independent solution separate from Facebook that could serve the public good, whatever the hell that means. Now you know what's going on. My goal here is to keep you informed and maybe make you a little bit excited about a solution. Solution can come from a variety of sources. Foxhole is one. If you don't belong to Foxhole, belong. Get there. Twitch is another one. And also, all of our archives are preserved on Odyssey. So even if YouTube takes us out in the next 5 minutes, thousands and thousands of hours of content are saved on Odyssey. That's Odyssee. And you can go there and you can watch them. There's enough there to keep you busy for a long time. So, where are we? Truth Frequencies on break right now, but they're going to come back here in about 20 seconds. We might call ourselves, our nation, maybe in the big snooze. You know, we're asleep. We're in bliss. But what is bliss actually? I mean, yes, you have the bliss of lovers, they've met and nothing else matters. I don't want to go to work. I don't care about anything. I just care about you and being with you. But look, nobody wonders anymore why I call Virtual Joe, right? I'm the one who calls him that. Hopefully it gets picked up somewhere. And I'm going to hear it somewhere out there, Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals, because we coined that right here on America Free Radio, because we are the voice of the revolution. Virtual Joe is not mentally or physically fit to be president of the United States. I don't think there's anyone that doubts that. And this has been obvious to anyone with eyes or ears for obviously the entirety of his presidency, but well before that. And acknowledging this simple fact should not really be a partisan issue. Just take a look. Just take a look at the shit stains in his suit, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Regardless of policy disputes, everybody should want the leader of the free world to exhibit strength, poise, quickness, wit, power, and the reassurance of both the national and the world stage. But Virtual Joe is merely a figurehead. You know it, I know it. He's a facsimile of a leader in an office that normally demands sharpness. It demands stamina. It demands the ability to walk up to a row of microphones with the press and answer freaking questions for 45 minutes to an hour like President Donald Trump does, with clear-headedness. You don't pull a card out of your pocket and say, well, let's see. This is what I'm supposed to say. This is what I'm supposed to call on. No honest assessment can conclude that Virtual Joe's public appearances present a man who is in control of his bowels, let alone who looks sharp and confident. On the contrary, he looks frail. He looks weak, indecisive, unsure, unsteady. You wonder if he's going to wander into traffic. And when he speaks, he often says things that they just don't make any damn sense. You can't put a sentence together. You have to master the English language. And it was obvious that Virtual Joe was not fit to lead the country when he fell no less than 3 times on his way up the steps of Air Force One back in March. Hello, it's July. It was clear that Virtual Joe was cognitively unfit when he was recently asked about Russian cyber attacks at a pie shop in Michigan. And he not only seemed to forget where he was, but he also pulled a note card out of his pocket for reference. You saw it. Now, my friends in California are telling me tribunals are going on in Washington, D.C. Where's the sauce? Where is the sauce? I'll go there if that's what it takes. I'll film it. I'll interview them. Where's the sauce? I want it. You want it. We all want it. I'll tell you, this is crazy. It was obvious Virtual Joe was not fit to lead the country when he held his one, and by the way, only press conference. It was 2 months ago, in case you forgot. It was easy to forget. He completely lost his train of thought. And he just abruptly walked away from the podium in the middle of attempting to answer a question from a reporter who he had called on from his list. It was clear Virtual Joe was not fit to lead just 2 months ago when he addressed FEMA staff members in garbled sentences, and they stared blankly as he did, and he looked uncomfortable. Here's what he said. I'm not going to quote it exactly, but this is the words. But there's, there to be, beginning this effort for 2021 is, I think, there's help. There's the moving. There, being there to help. Clear roads, rebuild main streets, and so that the family can get back to their lives. That's what FEMA does every single day. I swear to God, that's what he said. And here was the headline from Washington Post. Virtual Joe says he will insist on nothing less than readiness during hurricane season. What? I didn't hear that. That's not what he said. That might have been what was on the card, but that's not what he said. And it was obvious Virtual Joe was not fit to lead the country when he whispered to reporters up close to the microphone, pay them more. This is an employee's bargaining chip now. Virtual Joe said this with his neck stuck out of his suit, like he was telling a ghost story to grandchildren around a bonfire. The fact that the Fourth Estate chooses to ignore and defend these clear instances of dumbassedness delirium, and all too frequent just bumbling from Virtual Joe goes a long way in explaining why the American people, they don't have faith in the fake stream news. That's why they're tuning into America Free Radio, because I'm giving you the truth. I'm giving you the facts. Go over to Foxhole. There are 8 other hosts live right now. Patriot News. What is that? Zoso Dude 77. Singing Pretty. 412 and On. 3 Beer Men. Salty Cracker. They're all giving you their opinions, their analysis, and every bit of it's more true than what's coming to you from the fake stream news. The fake stream media is corrupt. They're part of what we call the global media empire. That's why they are fake news. That's why Americans are tuning them out. And that's why nothing they say matters anymore. Ignorance, after all, is bliss. The trouble is that the global syndicate only needs us to do nothing for them to be victorious over America. And bliss is ground zero of nothing. And you know what happens when good men do nothing. We can't wait for the movie to end. We have to walk out. We have to end this movie. And we need to do it tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. You know what to do. By the way, if you have kids, and I had a kid in every school in the county which I lived in, so I was active in the school boards. You need to get your kids out of the government schools because they're broken. In the recent struggles between school boards and parents on the issue of critical racist theory and other radicalized subjects, sometimes it seems teachers are caught in the middle between the demands of school boards and unions on one side and the demands of parents on the other. Hell, some of the teachers are parents. They're yanked this way, they're yanked that way, they're told what to do to keep their job. But while many teachers genuinely find themselves in such a bind, it's not what you think. It's not split down the middle. I saw an article. It's entitled, "Over 5,000 Teachers Sign Pledge to Defy Anti-Critical Racist Theory Laws." Yes, I know. It is critical racist theory. The entire theory is racist because it separates people into races, and it tells the members of these races, which are identified by the color of your skin, to hate one another, to doubt one another, to oppress one another, and to oppose one another. And that is not America. That is racism. So it is critical racist theory. Now, what these instructors are saying is they are determined to indoctrinate your kids with this evil, destructive agenda, regardless of state laws and regardless of what you say, what your objections are. These teachers truly want to indoctrinate your kids. Consider this tweet of a teacher. I'm going to quote it. "I do a lot of work with social justice and equity in my classroom. We have radicalized conversations all the time." Really? How about math? How about reading? How about science? Just radicalized through radicalized conversations. Listen, Earth Explorers, government schools are broken. Don't send your kids there. Now, once upon a time, our public education system was the best in the world. That is before the National Education Association, a union that is a clear and present danger and a national security risk, got its claws on it. Children were literate, they were disciplined, and if you want proof, you can take a gander at, how about the 8th grade final exam from 1895? That's a good one. Let's go back, because this is where the past meets the future. My grandmother went to a one-room school from kindergarten all the way to the 8th grade. And this is what parents still want for their children. My grandmother was a genius, and she raised me. There seems to be a common goal among parents on what it takes to make a good public school. They want a quality academic program. They want a safe environment for their kids. They don't want their girls being taught that they can be a boy. They don't want their boys being taught that they can be a girl, and that they better march down to the nurse's office and begin their sex-blocking supplements right away. They don't want this. They want parenting left to the parents. It's not a difficult recipe. It's one we've had for hundreds of years. Is it too much to ask? American taxpayers are paying out the butt for their public school systems. Each child is allocated anywhere between $7,000 and $16,000 a year, depending on the county. That's a lot. In every single county in the United States, schools are by far the largest budget. But we don't want America-hating fascists or professional victims or shrieking activists or rainbow-dressed freaks with a dildo hanging in front of their belly button, shaking it in front of our kids. We don't want that. They just want their kids to have a sound grounding in math and history and reading, writing, geography, science. You know what I'm talking about. The president of the organization Free to Learn said this, and I agree. We're sinking lower and lower in worldwide rankings. We're seeing activism instead of achievement in schools. 82% of parents polled said they don't want politics in the classroom. 71% want core subjects instead of ideology. And of that 71%, 66% self-identified as liberal. I'm telling you, people don't want this. People want their kids prepared for the future. They want their kids to learn how to learn, independent of politics or these racist agendas. So now, parents are in direct conflict with the unions. And for months now, and you've seen it, you've seen the posts, haven't you? Horrified parents have been protesting at school board meetings. One black father in Michigan absolutely eviscerated the school board. You saw it, didn't you? The post on Facebook. He said critical racist theory, I'll say it, he said critical race theory is teaching that white people are bad. That's not true. That would teach my daughter that her mother is evil. Yeah, seriously. A multiracial mother in Nevada who has multiracial children also slammed the agenda. So my white kids are oppressing my black kids. Is that what you're saying? And for a little while, I naively thought parental objection to the spread of critical racist theory might be making some headway. These brave parents, and by the way, there are many of them, tens of thousands of them, receive wild rounds of applause from other parents. But the school boards are unmoved. In some cases, the parents have been arrested. In almost every case, they cut their microphone off. They ignore them. They expel their children for having the audacity to question the agenda. Millions of frustrated parents continue to beat their heads bloody against the brick wall of the teachers' unions of the global syndicate, knowing good and well their children will be turned into radicals, just like what we're seeing coming out of the schools right now, 2 generations worth, if they remain in government schools. Earth explorers, the public schools are broken. Don't send your kids there. There are other alternatives. Yes, you can homeschool, but a lot of people can't do that. They have jobs. They got to go to work, got to earn money, got to pay the mortgage. Can't stay at home and teach kids. but there are ways of doing it, okay? And believe me, private schools are becoming more and more affordable. And if President Donald Trump is allowed to do it, if he's allowed to get back in the White House, he will put into law vouchers. You know what that means? That means that the tax money that is collected by the county for your kid is given to you as a voucher, and you can take that voucher and you can go to any school you want. Church school, charter schools, private schools, satellite schools, prep schools, and you can teach your kid the way you want your child to be taught. If you want your little boy to grow up as a soy boy and believe that he's a woman and have his penis chopped off, go for it. But if you want your boys to play soccer and football and baseball, you want them to learn about history and space travel and medicine and become math whizzes, you want your girls to learn math and science and become teachers or professors or corporate heads, that's your right. You have the right to do that. But government doesn't have the right to take your children away from you and indoctrinate them. Kids in other parts of the world are taught math, science, history, languages, and other critical knowledge. Other nations, many of which are hostile toward America, they're not coddling their youth and turning them into victims. Instead, they're creating people of strength. And by the way, not all of it is good. People who are poised to unleash devastation upon weaker nations. And China doesn't make any bones about its aspirations for global dominance. Should that happen, our wimpified graduates are going to cower. They're going to cry. They're going to pee their pants. They're going to bleat about racial oppression and utterly unable to stand up to the aggressors. Yeah. Tell that to the black people in China who can't rent a hotel, who can't rent a car, who are fired and ostracized just because they're black. Thanks to critical racist theory, pushed by the global media empire, America has become an international laughingstock. Our enemies are rejoicing as they watch the nation's educational system and, by extension, its manufacturing base, our productivity, become a mockery of what it once was. We used to be the powerhouse of the world, and today we are the whiners and we are the weenies of the world. Bottom line is, you can't know what's going on behind the closed doors of your child's classroom. They won't let you. It's simply too dangerous to entrust your precious children to the designs of these creeps and weirdos. So don't do it, okay? It's no wonder preschool and kindergarten enrollment has dropped 13% nationally, and public school enrollment in general has dropped 3%. These are encouraging numbers, but we have a long way to go. We need to close public schools. All right, let's see. I'm going to skip that story. Oh, no, wait a minute. How about that? How about this one? Space is the place. I think you misunderstand me. I'm not like Musk or Bezos. And besides not being a billionaire, I don't think mankind needs to focus on populating other planets. If we go for either the moon or Mars or any of the moons of Saturn, whoever settles there, they're never going to be able to return to Earth. Their children's bodies would adapt to that planet, and they would never return to this planet unless they stayed inside their spacecraft and looked out the windows. And if the last 2 years have taught us anything, it's that we have to cohabitate with millions of viruses on this planet. We gain our immunity every single day because we are the cure. We always have been. If this was not so, we would have been wiped out millennia ago. But once you leave this world, in a couple of generations, Your genome is going to call forth sleeping capabilities. Your bones and organs will adapt to the gravity and radiation conditions on that world. And that adaptation will be permanent, and it will be irreversible. Now, does that mean space exploration should stop? No. Earth is the planet to end all planets in our galaxy, and maybe even the universe. It's a special and unique place in its ability to protect life and adapt its ecology. It actually acts like a living thing. The truth is that we may be depleting the Earth's stored energy faster than it can generate it. And that means we must look to other worlds for energy and minerals if we are to maintain 10 to 15 billion people on this planet. Unless, of course, you can convince third world countries to stop reproducing. Or if you could teach them to properly handle and recycle their trash, their sewage, and food production the way first world does. Good luck with that. So space is it. It's true. The ISS requires an enormous support infrastructure, dwarfing anything that Branson assembled at his space base in New Mexico. And for his part, Elon Musk means it when he says he wants to move permanently to Mars. And that would likely first entail a Musk-size and then some investment from Earth. Now, of course, it would be argued that innovative private sector types will find ways to do things leaner and cheaper, and maybe it's possible. But every minute of their day will be micromanaged just so they can survive, just so they can get water and air. And anyone who ventures to work further away from here than the moon will likely not survive to return to Earth. It is, after all, only 2 days away, right? However, Earth, anyone born on the moon, they're not coming back to Earth unless they come here right after birth. But I would say even their fetal gestation would preclude them from returning to Earth. In other words, the U.S. possesses exactly the sort of stuff that it takes. But would you prefer to deal with China or Russia in space? I don't think so. So if the U.S. is the partner of choice, then the question arises, is the U.S. inclined to defend private space travelers wherever they go? Yes, I think they are. If they go to space, does our defense, implicit and explicit, go with them? I don't know. For reasons that we have yet to see, if we do go to space in a big way, it will likely have to be a public-private partnership. If the billionaires understand that dynamic and are willing to do their part for the nation and for the world and not just for themselves, and if American political leaders have the vision to see that going to space is like, a 1492 opportunity, then this Branson moment could be the beginning of a beautiful partnership, a whole new epoch of American greatness. We shall see. Sunday. Wow, what an amazing day it has been. Listen, this is America Free Radio. It's free, everything. Sign up for my newsletter, hit the like button, and I am your host, Brooks Agnew. I'm here every Wednesday, every Sunday at 8 o'clock. I love you. I truly love you. And I reach out to you 8 hours a week with everything I can, everything I have. Reach back. Reach back. Write me. There's a form right there at the website, brooksagnew.com. You can write me back. You can reach me at bagnew@x2-radio.com. All of that is written right down here in the description on YouTube, and now you have it on the other media as well. I need you to go out and look for the good in other people. I need you to help it grow a little every day. Because if you can do that, we can save this planet. There are enough of you to get that started. My name is Brooks Agnew, saying, peace, Earth Explorers, peace. Now go and do. Tomorrow morning is Monday. Look at it with vigor. We have 5 whole days to get after it before we can relax on the weekend again. And I'll see you on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. All right. Any questions out there in the chat room? We have 15 seconds. Yes, thank you very much. Good night, one and all. Baba Susie, good to see you out there. Zen Yoga, Mad Hat. Lady Peregrine, haven't seen you in a while. Thank you so much for being out there. Be good, Earth Explorers. We'll see you. Bye-bye.